Hello everyone, and this is Pedro with CineMilled once again coming at you with another awesome Tip Tuesday. And today we are going to be talking about how to balance your payload on the CineMilled Pro Ring using the CineMilled spindles. Alright, so before we get started, let's go over a couple of things. First, make sure your ready rig is properly adjusted and set up correctly. If you're not sure, or if you weren't aware, we have a very good ready rig quick start guide video on our YouTube channel. All right, so before we get started, let's go over a couple of things. The ring itself is very important to the conversation we're going to be having in the next few minutes. Why is that? Because basically there are two ways to adjust the pitch balance of your payload. The number one way, and it's what I consider a gross adjustment, it makes a very large difference, is by changing the angle of the gimbal mount on your horizontal tube right here. Now, if you're not using a Pro Ring and you're using a Ronin 2 ring or another Movi ring of some sort that is, is not comprised of sections like ours is, you cannot change the angle of the horizontal tube mount. In the case of the Ronin 2 ring, it's actually octagonal shaped right at the gimbal mount area, exactly so that it won't slip, so there's no way you can make that adjustment. I believe the Movi Pro one is also fused in place, and so the only way to alter the angle of the gimbal mount is if you have a CineMilled Pro Ring and you're using the clamp kit as you see here. All you have to do is slightly loosen these bolts just enough so that you can move its position and alter the fore and aft balance of the payload. And now, like I said, this is a gross adjustment. So the second way you have of adjusting the fore and aft balance of the payload in the ring is by altering the angle of the spindle on the ring. Now, why is this a problem if you don't have the CineMilled Pro Ring? So any other ring like the Ronin 2 ring or the Freefly Movi ring, they do not have movable side tubes. Ours are removable, you can change the length, but they also movable and you can put them in any position. If they're fixed, like the way they are here, the only way you have to adjust the angle of that spindle is by holding it with one hand and then breaking it loose and then trying to be very fine in altering that angle, right? The problem with doing that, first of all, since the weight of the gimbal is pulling up on this, is that it's going to try to move that spindle up on your ring, and that's a problem because it's going to change the top and bottom balance of the ring. So we just made another Cine Tip Tuesday video on pitch sensitivity, on essentially why and how you adjust the spindle position vertically on this tube. If you haven't seen that, you absolutely should check it out. I'll put the link in the video details below, and I'll put a link up above on YouTube also. And so that's a really good video, and that gives you all the information you need to know about why that matters. Pro Ring, the option you have, and you're going to see me do it here in a few moments, is you don't have to touch the spindle position, right? You did the top and bottom balance already, and so it's in the position you want it. What you can do is you can loosen the corner, right? Now, because all the weight is pulling up on this is not just going to drop out. It's actually, the weight is pushing down on it and it's pushing up, and so it's totally safe to do this. So you just break this loose right here on the kip handle, and then you can make a very fine adjustment by rotating the spindle. So to summarize, if you don't have the CineMilled Pro Ring, you can't make any adjustments at the gimbal mount. You have to make all of the adjustments at the spindles. And so what this eventually can lead to, if you have a very back-weighted setup, is that your spindles, instead of being perpendicular to the pan axis, they're going to be at some weird angle like this. And so I've seen that on a lot of Instagram photos before of people using like the Ronin 2 ring, because they're trying to get the ring balance, and that's the only adjustment they have, and they end up with this wacky position, which is just not conducive to the best performance of the spindles themselves. As you just saw, using the CineMilled Pro Ring makes this all much easier, gives you much finer control. So now let me pick it up and let me demonstrate to you how to get your payload balanced. All right, make sure you have your ready rig as tight as it'll go. If you have the air bladder, you're gonna wanna pump that up, which I'm gonna do right now. All right, so let's see where it landed right after I picked it up off the stand. So just let go and see what the payload does. So as you can see here, it is extremely front heavy, right? And that's not what we want to do. If we were to operate this, we would have to constantly apply pressure at the bottom of the tube to maintain the frame we want, and that's not what you want to do. You want to do the least amount possible with your hands that you need to hold frame. So let's get this balance. So since we're grossly out of balance, the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the angle of the gimbal mount. So like I just talked about, if you don't have the Pro Ring, you won't have this gross adjustment. You'll have to do all of the adjustment with the spindles, and you're probably going to end up with the spindles at a really wacky angle, which is not so great. But because we have the Pro Ring, let me show you how to get that adjustment. So let's grab our Allen key that I have here on my tool holder on my CineMilled dock, and we're just going to want to break these loose. You don't even have to go super loose, because it's good to have some resistance there. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to grab the panhandle, hold the ring, and rotate the mount, right? So this is rotating on this vertical tube. So let's do that. Let's grab it again. Okay, see, now it's going backwards, so I've gone too far. So now I'm going to push this way, and now we're falling forward. So let's try to find a happy medium. All right, let's see. That is pretty good. But now this brings up a very important point. Before we even start, we need to know where we are with our pitch sensitivity. Essentially, how top or bottom heavy this ring is, this payload is here on the ring that we're trying to balance. Because the more bottom heavy it is, it could be masking the fact that this is in balance or not, right? So my guess is right now it is a little bit bottom heavy. Sure enough, that is absolutely bottom heavy. So before we go further, because we could be chasing our tail, we should adjust the vertical position of the spindles, like we covered in our previous video. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Let's see what that's like. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. All right, so I got a 3-second drop time, which is kind of where I like to start off. So it's important to point out that now that we are at a 3-second drop time, we are closer to being neutrally balanced. The more sensitive things get in pitch, right? So now it only takes a little bit of force in order to tilt, right? Very little force in order to tilt. It's very much like a Steadicam is now. So this requires a very fine adjustment of the spindle position, right? Of the spindle angle. The best way to do this without altering the vertical position of the spindle at all, because we have the Pro Ring here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen my upper kip handle right here on the Pro Ring. Now I do each side at a time because I want to make the same adjustment on one side as I do the other, and this way I can do less adjustment and it has a bigger effect. So I split the adjustment between the left and the right side, resulting in a smaller adjustment per side, right? So as we can see, we are falling forward. So I'm going to want to rotate the spindle clockwise, and there you go, went too far. And now it's falling backwards. So I need a little bit more. And we're close. So when we get close, I'm going to lock one of the tubes here. So now I'm just making even finer adjustment just by using the one side, right? So make sure that kip handle's nice and tight. Let's check to see where we're at. So as you can see there, we're slightly front heavy, and so all I'm going to want to do is a very like 0.5 millimeter adjustment on the tube, and as you can see there, Now we're just slightly falling back. There we go. I like that right there. All right, so I bet you didn't see anything move at all, but I can assure you I moved the spindle about 0.5 millimeter, and now we are just about perfect. See, it doesn't go anywhere, right? I could jump and it doesn't fall forward, it doesn't fall backwards. We are now perfectly balanced in the fore and aft attitude. And so what this means is, with this 3-second drop time that I have, I can just have a very light touch on what I'm doing, and I can do very precise operating the same way I do with my Steadicam. And so this is how you should have your payload balanced on your ring. Now we end up at a place where this feels a lot more like my Steadicam does than normal gimbal operating. Why? Because we're adjusting the pitch sensitivity, right? Which is by moving the spindle up and down, and by rotating it, we're adjusting the actual pitch balance. So you rotate the spindle to adjust pitch balance, and you move the spindle up and down to adjust pitch sensitivity. So that's pretty much it, guys. It's really that simple. As you can see, it is a lot easier to do because you can get a lot finer adjustment if you have the CineMilled Pro Ring than if you don't have the CineMilled Pro Ring, because then you're gonna have to do everything with spindles. Pro Ring allows you to keep those adjustments independent of each other, and thereby allowing you to arrive at exactly the balance that you want for the next shot that you're going to be doing. Well, all right guys, I'm ready to shoot here. Hopefully this video enlightened you a little bit. Hopefully I explained it in a way that clicks and that helps you get your Pro Ring and your CineMilled spindles adjusted just right, and allows you to nail the shot for your director on the first or the second take instead of the 6th, 7th, or 8th take. And after all, that's the whole purpose of this thing. So, all right guys, I'll see you on the next Cine Tip Tuesday.